With so many great achievements in gaming, it's always a shame when things go terribly, terribly wrong. Hey friends, I'm Ricky with WatchMojo, and today we're counting down our picks for the top 20 biggest video game fails of the last decade.
Your strength fails.
For this list, we're exploring monumental screw-ups in the game industry between 2010 and 2019. Now, we're focusing on games and consoles that lost their companies a ton of money. Disappointment number 20, go. Number 20, the PlayStation Classic. Nintendo's success from the NES and SNES Classic prompted Sony to do the same. Surely, players would want a small digital library of classic PS1 titles. Well, as it turns out, if you implement a bunch of aspects players hate, the answer is a resounding no. The mediocre game lineup was an easy criticism pre-launch, but the poor user interface, subpar image and emulation quality, and an insane $100 price tag made the game lineup the least of our worries. Word spread fast, and Sony has gone through several price cuts to get people to buy them. Within a year of its launch, you can now get one for around $20 to $25. Number 19, Xbox One's pre-launch.
Ladies and gentlemen, introducing Xbox One.
Microsoft's future is looking bright going into the 9th generation. It's just a shame they've had to course correct so intensely due to the disastrous launch of their 8th generation console. At the Xbox One's reveal event in May 2013, Microsoft was criticized for focusing too much on TV and sports instead of games.
Xbox, watch TV.
But that was just the beginning. It was revealed the Xbox One would require constant internet connection, the always-on Connect sparked privacy concerns, and the system's design would have prevented selling and trading old games. To put it lightly, it was a mess, and all that for $100 more than the PS4.
When a gamer buys a PS4 disc, they have the rights to use that copy of the game. They can trade in the game at retail, sell it to another person, lend it to a friend, or keep it forever.
After Sony wiped the floor with them at E3 2013, Microsoft was left with no choice but to reverse all of these bad decisions. And it's something they've had to work back from the entire generation. Number 18, Sonic Boom, Rise of Lyric.
Amy, Knuckles, go left!
Give me a sec. I'm on it!
Not one to shy away from the reboot trend, Sega opted to give their iconic mascot and his friends a bandage-covered makeover in a new game being developed by Big Red Button. A new team made up from former developers from Naughty Dog. What could go wrong?
Guys, can we put a pin in this for a second?
Well, pretty much everything. The game was marred with technical issues so bad that some considered it worse than the infamous Sonic 06. It was later revealed that these problems stemmed from the fact that the game was forced to shift development to the Wii U thanks to an exclusivity deal, a console that wasn't optimized to run the game's engine. I mean, at least the spin-off TV show was pretty good.
Studios should stop recycling the same tired old properties and make something original for once.
Number 17, Crackdown 3. Our hearts go out to the developers of Crackdown 3. The latest entry of the hectic third-person shooter series went through 4 delays before finally releasing in February 2019. And they were all products of trying and failing to keep the hefty promises the game was supposed to deliver on. Fully destructible environments through the Xbox One's highly touted cloud processing were harder to implement than they had originally thought. The delays, crowded release schedule, and mediocre game design made Crackdown 3 sell pretty poorly. It didn't actually do much different from the original Crackdown, which was released in 2007. It's such a shame this was a failure, given the importance riding on this title.
The future is secure as long as the agency threat dies.
Number 16, Always On DRM Games. Remember that constant internet connection of the Xbox One? Well, Microsoft aren't the only ones who fell prey to it. DRM, or Digital Rights Management, is a technology that's designed to verify the legitimacy of a purchase in an effort to fight piracy. But at the start of the decade, a trend of DRM that emerged required players to maintain an internet connection even if they were playing single-player games. Two of the most notable games that used this feature were Diablo 3 and 2013's SimCity. Both of which proved to be too much for their respective companies' servers at launch, meaning players were unable to even play the games that they had bought. There's a good reason this never caught on.
You're going to experience a new generation of gaming like you've never seen before.
Number 15, Metal Gear Survive. The first Metal Gear game without Hideo Kojima was always going to be met with serious scrutiny. Unfortunately for us, Konami dropped the ball pretty hard. Gone was the focus on stealth gameplay the series was known for. Instead, Survive was an action survival game set in an alternate universe that tasked players with combating zombie-like creatures. If that doesn't convince you the tacked-on Metal Gear name was just a cash grab, the inclusion of microtransactions should. The story and characters, which by the way had nothing to do with the iconic characters players know, were also met with fair criticism. Nevertheless, it underperformed. And it's a rather sour note as the so far last installment of such a cherished series. Number 14, the Wii U.
An exclusive library of games means unique spins on that classic Nintendo fun.
While the Wii U had some great games, it was almost set up to fail from the very beginning. Revealed at E3 2011, Nintendo focused so heavily on the new controller that many didn't realize it was an entirely new console. And naming it after the popular Wii to sound like an add-on didn't really help. The console would struggle through mediocre third-party ports and a trickling of great first-party fare for 5 years. With nothing really new to draw players in, the Wii U was a colossal financial failure for Nintendo. At least this failure has a happy ending. It led to the inventive and highly successful Switch. Number 13, the PlayStation Vita. Sony's handheld consoles were always going to be second fiddle to Nintendo's lineup, but things didn't go well for the Vita at all. From the moment the system launched, sales were very slow and never had the chance to take off. This was attributed to the fact that there weren't that many must-own exclusives on the system, and its multimedia features were being bested by smartphones at the time. Eventually, game development for the Vita ended mid-decade, with most of its exclusives being ported over to the PS4 and Sony quietly discontinuing the Vita in March 2019. Sadly, unlike the Wii U, there's no successor to the PS Vita in sight. Number 12, Mighty Number 9.
Brand!
I'm warning you, Beck! Stay away!
When it comes to Kickstarter campaigns, for every incredible Shovel Knight, there are at least 3 like this. Mighty Number 9 was meant to be a spiritual successor to Mega Man, and even came from the Blue Bomber's artistic creator, Kaiji Inafune. Given the popularity of the Capcom franchise, Mighty Number 9 blew through all of its financial milestones incredibly quickly. After many delays, it was met with tremendous backlash from both players and critics. Underwhelming graphics, a bland story, and poor technical performance were all favorites to pick apart. Even those who backed the project reported receiving broken download codes and mismatched rewards. An overall disaster of a project, it didn't help that it received one of the worst launch trailers of all time.
And make the bad guys cry like an anime fan on prom night.
Number 11, No Man's Sky launch. When promoting a game, it's best to keep your promises in check. Hello Games learned this the hard way when they launched No Man's Sky in 2016. Players were ecstatic to explore a procedurally generated galaxy with their friends, discovering new planets and species. A victim of overhype and overselling, the title released without many of the promised functions. Multiplayer components and gameplay elements, such as those in terms of crafting resources and different planetary features, were absent from the game. This obviously sparked outrage from players sold on a certain experience. This failure to live up to expectations is something Hello Games has had to work very hard to fix with updates to the game. And the game is actually pretty good now.
When the game is out, one of you might one day come across this planet.
Number 10. Assassin's Creed Unity.
Someone sent them after Monsieur de la Serre.
Templars do nothing simply, do they?
For a while, the Assassin's Creed series seemed unstoppable thanks to a yearly release schedule that turned out one successful title after another. But at the start of the 8th console generation, that all came to a screeching halt. Intent on maintaining their yearly release schedule, Ubisoft released Unity in a broken, unfinished state. Not only were the bugs plentiful, but the game was also prone to crashing. In fact, reception of the game was so bad that it affected sales for the next game in the series, Assassin's Creed Syndicate, forcing Ubisoft to give the series a break, and a much-needed overhaul. Thankfully, that overhaul paid off, because Odyssey was pretty damn good.
Elise! Elise! Elise!
Number 9. Command & Conquer 4: Tiberium Twilight.
You got it.
A structure is ready.
Rendezvous at the new AO.
Once upon a time, Command & Conquer was at the peak of the RTS mountain, right alongside the likes of StarCraft. Yet the 2010s ended up being its downfall. In a decision that defies all logic, Tiberium Twilight was developed by EA as the finale of the Tiberium storyline, while at the same time, a soft reboot of the series' core gameplay mechanics.
Ready to take point.
Gone was base building and resource gathering in favor of fast-paced battles with preset classes and an RPG leveling up system. Basically, removing everything the series was known for. The game's critical and commercial failure caused the series to go silent for the rest of the decade, save for a mobile spin-off no one asked for. You know, at least we're getting remakes of the first 2 games next decade, so there's that. Number 8. Telltale Games.
Beans. Homemade. Might be more where this came from.
Rest in peace. While they were around since 2005, Telltale Games earned fame by creating point-and-click games based on popular IPs. Their most successful being 2012's The Walking Dead, where tough choices made for engaging storytelling.
Lee protected other people too. But he couldn't save everyone.
But some of the most expensive costing franchises like Batman and Game of Thrones, combined with diminishing sales, meant they had to shut their doors in 2018. But that's not even the worst part. The worst part is how they went about it. With little notice, Telltale laid off 250 employees with no severance pay. What remains of the studio was purchased by LCG Entertainment in 2019, but this was an undeniably awful handling of an already bad situation.
New life begins.
Iron from ice.
Iron from ice.
Number 7. Fallout 76. Where do we even start with this one? Bethesda's latest Fallout has disappointed on almost every front. No, scratch that, literally every front. With no NPCs at first, players would inhabit the game's massive world together. Too bad the world was plagued with bugs and repetitive gameplay loops. And here's a secret, things have been just as ugly post-launch. Controversy surrounded the $200 collector's edition, whose canvas bags were switched out to nylon last minute by Bethesda. But there's also Fallout First, a rather pricey subscription plan. Even this is riddled with issues. Players have reported one of the service's perks, a scrap box to store endless materials, makes their items disappear. And the private worlds for you and your friends? Well, they're not invite only, so they aren't quite as private as you'd think. Here's a good tip, just play the Outer Worlds instead.
It's not been long, and things have been rough. Welcome to Survivor Stories.
Number 6. Anthem.
The cockpit is secure. This job is hard enough without looking over our shoulders the whole time.
I'm not taking the blame for this.
BioWare's online sci-fi shooter would probably still make the list for its repetitive grind, generic story, and its failure to meet EA's selling expectations. but it's the behind-the-scenes story that makes things so much worse.
You have no idea what the Heart of Rage can do to a person. I'll be fine. Really? Have you ever fought anything out there?
Shortly after the game's release, Kotaku's Jason Schreier interviewed a group of anonymous BioWare employees, and the picture they painted was not pretty. Poor management, crunch, high stress, indecision about what the game should actually be, and a forced usage of EA's Frostbite game engine all resulted in a half-baked title. Anthem is a tedious, unfun mess that doesn't live up to BioWare standards. It was so bad that the game is now set for a full overhaul. Who knows how that's gonna go?
Then I'll show you. No, that's not how we conduct business.
Number 5. Battleborn.
Friggin' casuals! Ah, damn it, call coming in!
Gearbox's hero shooter is actually an okay game. It had enough variety in each character's gameplay mechanics to keep players interested. Its failure, however, can mostly be attributed to its launch window. It was released in May of 2016, mere weeks before the much more highly anticipated Overwatch from Blizzard.
It's time.
Though they were similar, Overwatch was clearly the better game and had the larger marketing budget. Battleborn sold decently at launch, but player count dropped immensely after Overwatch released, with the PC count dropping from 12,000 to 1,000 just 2 months later. The game would eventually go free-to-play in 2017, but now the game is scheduled for shutdown in January 2021. So long, Battleborn.
Enough nonsense!
Catch this!
Number 4. Radical Heights.
And this is what I have to show for it? I'm ready to be more than this.
With the boom in popularity of Battle Royale games like PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds and Fortnite, we've seen many studios follow the trend to varying degrees of success. At the very bottom of that list sits Radical Heights.
That's gonna leave a mark.
Developer Boss Key Productions likely thought this title would help them recuperate losses from their first game, the FPS Lawbreakers. However, Radical Heights, classified as being in extreme early access, was criticized for using unpolished assets and recycling gameplay from much more successful counterparts. It was obviously a slapdash combination of things Boss Key thought would bring players in. Instead, it brought financial ruin to the studio as it closed shortly after. Cliff Bleszinski, the studio's founder and creator of Gears of War, even retired after Boss Key's closure.
Bummer, dude! You're definitely not leaving empty-handed. Here's what you've won.
Number 3. Mass Effect Andromeda.
I didn't know you were biotic.
Don't worry, it's not contagious.
Things started going downhill at BioWare before Anthem. The fourth, and so far final entry in the Mass Effect series, was built by the company's Montreal team. Montreal represent... Just like with Anthem though, Kotaku's Jason Schreier reported mismanagement issues. God damn it, Montreal. Notably, the team was forced to use the Frostbite engine, which required them to build everything from the ground up. Many team members, especially those in leadership positions, would leave BioWare during the difficult production. Upon release, facial animations were a constant source of jokes from players.
Sorry, my face is tired from dealing with everything.
And a bevy of technical bugs and glitches made it frustrating to play. It was so bad that EA shut down BioWare Montreal as a result of the failure.
Did the rest of the team make it?
Number 2. Duke Nukem Forever.
However, we've got even more immediate problems. They're taking our women, Duke. I think you understand the implications here.
Sometimes, a game is better off being cancelled. Such is the case with Duke Nukem Forever. First announced to be in development in 1997, the game went through many delays and different developers and publishers before it would see the light of day. Unfortunately, it didn't evolve in the decade and a half since its announcement.
Hey Duke, did you see the report? Are those the same guys you fought back in the day?
Everything felt outdated, from the stale pop culture references to the awkward controls to the ugly graphics. Criticism was swift and fierce. In fact, a tweet from 2K's PR firm, the Redner Group, threatened to blacklist critics who had been too mean in their reviews, prompting 2K to fire the firm. Duke Nukem is a product of the 90s, and hopefully, this train wreck has ensured that he'll stay there.
Excuse me, Duke Nukem? Yeah, my kid's a real big fan. Go on and ask him, Jimmy.
Mr. Nukem, will you sign this for me?
Sure, kid, but I better not find this on eBay.
Before we continue, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. you have the option to be notified for occasional videos or all of them. If you're on your phone, make sure to go into your settings and switch on notifications. Number 1. The PlayStation Network hack.
First of all, I'd like to send my sincere apologies for the inconvenience the service outage has caused you, and want to thank you for all the patience that you've shown as we worked through this restoration process.
I remember this one. It was a really long month for me. Games can flop. Companies can make mistakes. But putting the private information of your consumers at risk, that's hard to top. In 2011, Sony's PlayStation Network was hacked. Names, login information, addresses, and other personal information of 77 million users was obtained. As a result, the network was shut down for 3 weeks.
Sony took them offline on April 20th after the intrusion was detected. Computer security companies have been analyzing the attack, and its extent is still not clear.
Yet, in a baffling decision, Sony waited a whole week to disclose this information to anyone. And their offering of free games that most people had already played didn't appease the anger. This all cost Sony millions, as they paid around $171 million for security improvements and another $15 million for settling against the somewhat 65 class action lawsuits filed against them. The worst part? An investigation uncovered the attack could have been prevented had Sony's security software been up to date.
誠に申し訳ございませんでした.
And there you have it. 10 years of failure in one video. I'll tell you, that PSN hack really ruined my life back in 2011. That was a hard 3 weeks. But what about you guys? Let me know down in the comments which one of these failures affected you most. Check out this video over here and subscribe to WatchMojo.